who is the highest ranked running back in this year's class? I'm kidding. Everyone knows it's Bijan Robinson. Let's dig into his stats and talk a little bit about why he's so obviously the running back one in this year's class, even if you don't watch all the high T action on tape. He looks great. His rushing dominator is actually slightly lower in his first and second season, but he did play from 18 to 20. Had a full workload for at least those last two seasons with 22 or 23 touches per game if you're looking at overall rushing attempts and overall receptions, again pulling from sports football reference. If you look at his rushing dominator, you see it's only really that last year where he climbs excessively above the average of 57% max dominator rating, but he did do it his last 2 years. It's just the last year that's really way up there like Jonathan Taylor was. And again, the senior difference and the more players work into an offense, even at the running back position, you do see an uptick in volume just because you're expected to get more volume from coaches and from the scheme just the longer you play in college. So, is there anything else we can note about his profile? Yep. Everything's great. He's much more of a receiver than Jonathan Taylor was. You see that his routes per game, for example, starts off at 13 routes per game. Oh, you can't see it because I haven't skipped over enough. 13 routes per game jumps up to 21, which is excessively high for a running back, but it's not too uncommon. And in his final year, he got 17 routes per game. He's playing 9 games, 10 games, and 12 games, so there's no really per game problems here. He's playing a full season, well over the 6 or 8 game threshold, however you want to look at it, and was actively being used in the receiving game. I also find it interesting his targets per route run is lower than what we just saw from Jonathan Taylor, but he's getting more opportunity to run a route on the field. Now, I don't like that he's not being actively as targeted on a per route basis, but this running back isn't getting 3 and 5 and 8 routes per game. He's specifically being used at a volume that isn't too dissimilar to a tight end, for example, when they operate as a tight end 1 and are a dominant producer for 3 years. So Bijan Robinson was used as a much more active receiver. While he wasn't getting a target at an excessively high rate to the number of routes he was actually running on that route tree, I think his receiving stats was just ultimately better, and you can see that through the raw numbers. He's getting 3 targets per game in his second season and 2.4 targets per game in his third season, which equals and beats anything that Jonathan Taylor did. Again, these aren't direct comparisons, that's just a benchmark to give you an idea what really good looks like. Bijan Robinson is above really good in the receiving game, and while he's not being as actively targeted in the receiving game relative to his volume, the volume is ultimately the key, and he's getting utilized as a receiver much more than Jonathan Taylor was, and we know Jonathan Taylor can catch passes and is actively used in the receiving game in the NFL. And it's not just that one example, that's what borne out by the history of it as well. So Bijan Robinson's got a full workload. He's being more actively used in the receiving game than one of the best running back profiles we've seen in the last 4, 5, 6, or even 7 years. And that's all good. Is he performing well on it? Yes, if you need some stats to throw around, just name one and then point out his averages are better than the best stats for most number 1 running back profiles that have come into the NFL over the recent years. Well, remember when we looked at Jonathan Taylor and said that he was doing really well in elusiveness rating because he was scoring over 100 in elusiveness rating with a full workload? Well, there's Bijan Robinson's. He's getting over 20 touches a game as well through most of these years, and he's not over 100, he's over 160 in 2 out of 3 of his seasons. He's over 150 in all 3 of his seasons. However, film grinders at PFF calculate that at that level of volume, being that excessively high in elusiveness rating, it's kind of insane. And you can see it in yards after contact per attempt. Now, while elusiveness rating could be measured a number of ways based on how they're observing tape, they're actively trying to measure something that we can at least conceptualize with yards after contact per attempt. After they're contacted, how many yards do they gain on a per attempt basis? Again, it's fairly stable, has pretty good signal in terms of performance for the running back position, so I find it a trustable stat. We said the average in the best season of a running back with 2 top 12 seasons in the NFL is 3.7. I'm just gonna let that sit there. 3.7 is a good best season with a full workload. 6 is pretty good, is what I'm saying. So Bijan Robinson's got all the volume. He's being actively used in the receiving game, better than most of the best prospects we've seen in the running back position over the last 5 years at least, and he is performing better than everyone on that level of volume. There are really no questions here. There's always a question of, can a player translate? Ultimately, you don't know. But combined with the wealth of film and tape and college and Devi information saying, this is the guy, I think we'd really be appearing at eggshells to have questions about if Bijan Robinson is any good. He's performing better than 99th percentile performances in every performance stat with lower volume. Like, we can even bring in players that don't have the burden of having to do it repeatedly 20 times a game through full game workloads, and he still looks fantastic. Yeah, there are no questions here for me. So thanks very much, and I will see you again in the next video.